Hello guys, welcome to Sports History A2 Exam Screencast 1. So basically just a quick look here at how this is your first one, so I'll just explain through the concept or the context and how you're supposed to answer these and how you're using them. So basically you'll get a question that comes up on slide 1. When the question comes up, there might be an unmarked allocation, there might not. Ultimately you're trying to circle an important piece of information within the question that would allow you to link it to a memory method. Now, not everything will have a memory method, but some things will. If you have got a memory method, your job is to try and pause the question and then see if you can work out the memory method. If you can't work out the memory method, you let it carry on, and on the second slide it will then give you a memory method. At that point you should then try and pause, okay, then see if you can translate into the answer and then extend it with an example. Now you can do this in a variety of ways. One, you can just make notes yourself and do it. I will try to send a grid for you, but if not, I'd appreciate it. I might send you a blank grid if you could just put the questions in and the memory methods and the answers. That would be great. Okay, so basically I'll go through each one then. Okay, I will talk you through the acronyms, okay, and then your job is to try and work out what I'm talking about, and then you fill it into kind of a 3-column sheet, which I will attach with it. Okay, so first question then: compare the social and cultural factors affecting popular recreation with the factors affecting rational recreation. So for this question, ultimately what you're thinking about, as soon as you see popular recreation, okay, you know straight away popular recreation, P, that takes you into your key acronym for anything to do with popular recreation or rational recreation to come to that, but mainly popular recreation. Now what you've got to have a look at here is you have to compare the social and cultural factors. So what is really important here is you don't, just because you've got to compare the social and cultural factors, you've still got to do the following concept. There's the acronym, but you have to do it this way. So you're looking at point, which is a characteristic. Then you're explaining the sociocultural factors. So you explain the social and cultural factor of popular recreation and why. Okay, and then you say however, and then from that you give the characteristic of rational recreation, explain why. Now that makes it easy now, because that question could come in and you could end up talking about, so for example, if you took this the wrong way, it would make it really difficult for an examiner to understand if you just put lack of transport, improved transport. Now that's an answer, but it's a lot easier if you point, explain why, then put a contrasting connective in the middle, and then point, explain why again. Okay, so going through from that, the answer you would have, okay, so you're starting here. Local, due to lack of transport or communication. However, rational recreation is regional, national and international due to improved transport, i.e. the railways. Do you see what I mean? How you're going through that? Have a look through, okay, pick 5 that you would like to use, okay, and that's kind of how you're looking from that. So you pick 5, point, explain why, however, point, explain why, and the difference between pre-industrial and post-industrial, otherwise known as popular recreation and rational recreation. Right, moving on then. Cricket, absolutely huge for this exam. Now we're going to build up. I mean, I'm just giving you a little tickler really tonight on this one for Sunday. We're just getting ourselves into the revision process. They will get more difficult as we go along. Okay, then they'll ease up, and then we'll just start working towards case studies right at the end. Now, cricket is a case study that's hugely likely. So what you need to be able to do is explain cricket as a popular recreation. Yes, you have plucky crow, but cricket is a slight anomaly. Okay, so cricket does have things that are not your stereotypical plucky crow or pre-industrial popular recreation characteristics. So you've got to think about this. So basically, as soon as you come into cricket as a popular recreation, you will go plucky crow, obviously, but then you need to add specific information. So, okay, when we're talking about these, you've got your kind of local. Okay, you've got it. Now this bit here, so it's saying it's uncoded. Now, is that true? Cricket is the anomaly for coded and uncoded for, you know, I'll go as I go through. Then you're going down to the fact, is it cruel and violent? Well, there's no animal cruelty, is there? But cricket, again, okay, there was an element of violence in it, okay? And the violence came from kind of this concept of, you know, people throwing. One of the ways to get people out in early times was to throw the ball at the batsman to actually inflict pain, which is violence. Okay, so you know that's some things that you can have a look at. So have a look at the answer. Okay, so what you've got then, local rules were locally adapted depending upon the village you were at. Okay, so it was not uncoded, it was actually coded. There were early articles of agreement, for example 6 balls in an over. Okay, then you had this concept of non-violent, so you can say it was non-violent. Okay, however, I think you can also get it as violent. So you can say it's violent, as we've said in here. We've put it, so we said cruel and violent for popular recreation. You can use violent because fielder throwing a ball at running batsman has been known. So basically, to stop them from getting the other end, they wang it at the batsman. Now, irregular, always the same. So you've got that one there. So it's played on holy days, festival days. Key one here is Whitsuntide. Okay, so basically that is the holiday that's coming up now, although it's not a holiday for you, obviously, because you have an A-level exam right after it. So forget that holiday, but it was back in the day. Then you're going on to courtly and popular. Okay, so played together. This was the kind of thing here. So you kind of, we've talked earlier about, well, we will be talking in a minute, an exam question about social class. And this is a perfect example of different roles within the same game. So you had the courtly and popular actually playing a sport together in cricket, again as an anomaly to the other popular recreations. So you'd have gentry as the batsmen, peasants as the bowlers, or the kind of poor people as the bowlers, or make up the numbers, or fielding. Okay, then you've got this kind of rural, so played on village greens. Occupational, so what would happen is you have this kind of concept of rural, or yes, a rural pre-industrial patronage, where you'd have upper class person employing a cricketer as a gardener so they could play for their team. Wagering took place, we know that's general. Now, what is the specific information? Now, when you get to this point here and you do it as a 5-mark question, is it that important? I think it is. Okay, so I think it's important that you know something about this kind of concept of where cricket began. And if you go in Hampshire, you can actually go to it still exists, the Bat and Ball Inn. The Bat and Ball Inn was a pub on a green, and basically this pub was the kind of known as the Cradle of Cricket. It was the kind of catalyst of cricket as we know it today, and it's where the rules, the early articles of agreement were drawn up, and then eventually it got replaced in terms of the cricket's main kind of hub by the MCC, so Marylebone Cricket Club or Marylebone Cricket Club, and that was when it went to kind of rational recreation. So there's a bit of information here that shows, if it's a 20-mark question, which is a massive chance it will be, you are showing specific terminology. Going on then. Social and cultural factors affecting rational recreation. I don't really want to spend long on this, okay? So basically the key memory method, pluck a crow, opposite Y. Remember there's multiple R's in this, okay? So you're saying down here, it's not local, it's not uncoded, it's not cruel and violent, it's not irregular, it's not courtly popular, it's not rural, it's not occupational so much now what it is, but it's in a slightly different way, and wagering is slightly different. You know now it's the opposite. What you have to prove is Y. Okay, so we've kind of already done this because you've done the comparison. So I've just put this in as just one that you can have a look at. Okay, so I mean, this is a question, is it worth it? I don't know, because you've already should have done this before when you did the comparison of social and cultural factors impacting popular recreation and rational recreation. Going on then, okay, so this is a question that I've looked at and thought, if this come up, it would absolutely kill people. So what you've got to have a look at now is say, right, how does social class influence participation and pastimes in both pre-industrial and post-industrial Britain? So you're talking here, popular recreation and rational recreation. And then explain how one factor continues to affect participation today in terms of social class. Okay, so what I'd say to you now is kind of, right, let's have a look. Let's see what kind of stuff we can come up with. So the acronym I'm going to use for this, and I don't know if it makes sense, I've just thought of it this second, okay, is this. So you basically, if you think of pre-industrial times, popular recreation, it was kind of hugely synonymous with alcohol. Okay, alcohol was a massive part of these kind of holy religious or holy days, or kind of days off that people had that would lead to big kind of events where people would drink a lot. If you drink a lot, you might fart. Okay, so if I start off, your pre-industrial acronym is fart. Now what I need you to do with that is think, right, there's another term for a two-class society, and that begins with an F. Okay, being from a lower class or upper class would dictate, or courtly or popular, would dictate whether you played real tennis or mob football. These are two types of beginning with an A. When you play certain activities, like we just talked about cricket, your position in the team may be different depending upon it. Okay, and finally, certain sports meant, like for example, people could play cricket in their local village, or they could play, lower class could play mob football in their local village, but they couldn't play real tennis because real tennis required you to travel, okay, by horse and cart to the local market towns in order to play it. Okay, so that's your fart, and then when we turn off, the farting stops when you get to rational rep because we become so much more advanced, and now the farts turn to tarts. Okay, right, moving on. So what that means now then, so you kind of have a look at these, so the things that kind of slightly changed now. activities changed because the upper class had more of this, okay, which meant that, they could take part in more of the activities. Then, I'll go through and show you these key bits and how they're linked in a second. So if you have a look onto here. So the things that changed, you had this kind of concept of, I'll go through these ones, amateur and professional. So you had this kind of concept of a gentleman amateur where kind of they played for the kind of love of the game and not money. Payment was seen as a slight almost on their social status. Whereas professional were lower class, okay, and these were the kind of reasons they were playing for was for employment, for money, to make a living. Now, the other thing that changed in terms of social class is that kind of, religion. Okay, so church started to accept lower class what were originally mob sports, and now you could start to play. Church parishes had football teams. Okay, so Aston Villa's based around a kind of church team. Okay, as a local example. And finally, kind of this concept, the big difference between it, you could put that up here if you were going to do a match. So you say feudal system, 2 class, okay, and then you had the other side here, which is kind of, it now turns to a T, which is 3 class, so you could put time down the bottom. Okay, so these are just 3 ways that social class will dictate participation in different types of physical activity. Okay, so hopefully you can get that in. Class means you can have transport or you can't have transport. It means you can play certain activities, you can't play others. If you can both play the same activity, you have certain roles that are different. When we move on, class changed in rational recreation because there was 3 classes. There was an emerging middle class. This led to the kind of concept of a gentleman amateur and a professional. Okay, the lower class started to have more time to play as the gentleman amateurs did, so they had a little bit, well, not as much obviously, but they had the Saturday half days, so they could start to play physical activities where before they were working 72-hour weeks. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you on how that works. Going through them. Next one, describe how the characteristics of 19th century public schools led to the development of games as we know them today. So basically you then have to explain how 2 characteristics continue to impact on young people today. Okay, so what you've got then, characteristics of 19th century public schools, you should be able to come up with some kind of acronym for this, okay, and then you have to pick 4 of them that you're going to use. Acronym, and then you'll go from there. Pick 4. Remember, some of them are too similar to use again. So from that acronym, if you couldn't remember that, can you then start to think, right, do I know an example of a characteristic of a public school? But remember, you have to explain how it led to the development of sports we know it today. So, double B, so you've got boys that energy enthusiasm need to be channeled into games, e.g. Eton Wall game, Eton School, rugby handling game. Boarding gave time to playing, so standards improved. You had endowments, which allowed for specialist equipment money. Endowments, you could also talk about fee paying within endowments if you've used NGB's fee, which I know Carl used in lessons. You also had this concept of expansion. Okay, so the growth of the house system meant that participation started to become more competitive, if you remember from ASPE, we talked about inter-house games. Spartan, brutal treatment led to kind of, and severe living conditions really mirrored, I suppose, the games field, and that was something that was considered. Random, just I don't use that one. And then you've got non-local, gentry, you can see that. Now the key things that have stayed the same today, boarding. A lot of kind of private schools still have boarders, and boarders means that you kind of, 1, it's time away from family, but 2, like in terms of relationships, but 2, more importantly, it gives them more time for practice, okay, and study, but also practice. Then you've got this concept of fee paying, okay, so fee paying or endowments, these are still very much the case. So I've just this today come from Malvern College, and you look around there, it's like Hogwarts, so I just expected to see someone flying past me on a broomstick, okay, with a very posh broomstick, and you look at it and you think, Jesus, these schools, they have, the facilities are immense, okay, the equipment is top notch, because they still have this concept of paying fees. Malvern College, 20 grand a year, okay, also, you've got endowments from rich families to help with the facilities when their children are there. Okay, going on then. Final one. I've made a mess of that one then. So outline the objectives of the 1902 model course. Explain what is replaced by 1933 syllabus of physical training. 2 main differences between 1902 and physical education in state schools today. Key focus on these questions. You're going to have objectives, methodology, one of the things that comes from that course. Then it's going to compare it usually to the one ahead of it. And finally, there'll be some kind of link to today's national curriculum. You did PE last year. You know that it was, what it was. It's part of the national curriculum. You know who it's taught by, who does it, the values of it. So the key thing here is then you've got 1902 military drill. Okay, what was it? Aims, military fitness, discipline for working class in a place of society, and weapons training. Okay, why did it need? Because basically health amongst the working class was so poor, it needed something to change. Military drill seemed suitable for children. They were not going into the army. You've got like 11-year-olds doing doing it. Finally, teachers objected to non-commissioned officers from the army.